Calling the January 16th Norfolk Public School Committee meeting to order. We'll begin the meeting by reading our mission statement. The Norfolk Public Schools offers a safe, joyful, and challenging learning environment that meets the needs of our diverse students. Through school, family, and community partnerships, we provide an education that inspires lifelong learners and cultivates caring and productive citizens of our ever-changing world. We have a roll call.
Lauren Vivas.
Grace Lockhead.
Lisa Sheldon.
Ingrid Alardi.
Victoria Saldana.
Miriam Goodman.
And Medora and Jen cannot make it tonight, so in their place, I will attempt to chair this meeting. Perfect. So we'll start with public comment, and no one is here, so no public comment. We have received no correspondence, and we'll move to the school committee chair report.
Perfect. And I can provide that for Medora. The first item you have is a gift fund donation, and we have received a $500 library books donation from the Dave Young Children's Literature Foundation for the FK Library. So we need a motion to accept the grant, the donation.
I'll move to accept the donation.
Second. Okay. Any discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye. Great. The next is an update on the school building committee. So at our last meeting, we shared that the select board was going to be interviewing applicants who applied to serve on the school building committee. The committee is comprised of 2 school committee members, the town administrator, myself, and 3 community members. So over the last few weeks, the select board did interview and we received 5 resumes. They interviewed candidates and offered appointments to 3 individuals, Michael Ryan, Michael Lucarello, and Jason Whalen, and they were appointed as community members. The next step for them, they all received their appointment letters, and they have to go to the town clerk to be sworn in for that position. The school committee members we voted on a while back at one of our first meetings, so that was Medora and Grace. I will serve on the committee. Justin Casanova-Davis will as well. And then Matt Malnerich, our Director of Facilities, and Bob Bullock, who is the town building inspector, will serve in advisory capacity to the committee. So they are not voting members, but they will represent the district and the town as advisory members of that committee. We are hoping for the first meeting to be scheduled for Tuesday, January 30th at 7 p.m. The first order of business will be to elect a chair for that committee, and we're also hoping to appoint a demographer to do the updated demography study. We've sent out requests for proposals. I've received 1 to date. I think we're going to be getting a second, and the committee will review those and make a determination so that we can move forward with that work. Happy to answer any questions anybody might have. Not a lot to update until we have our first meeting, so.
Moving on to the superintendent report.
All right, first up is we have our business consultant, Miriam, here to provide the quarterly school committee budget update.
Great.
Hopefully a better picture than our last meeting, so.
Yes, definitely a little bit of a better picture that I will present for you tonight. So this is your current FY24 budget and how it is allocated. Total $15,086,615. You can see just about 83% towards instructional services, and then percentages in other categories, but this is where you are standing right now as a starting point. In terms of your 1,000 series for district administration, you're looking at roughly the same as the first quarter, just about break even, a little bit more for administrative services, as you can see listed. So looking at a balance of about $6,134. Again, similar to the first quarter. Where we have some changes are the instructional services account. This is your principals, your teachers, your professional development, supplies and materials, and all of your guidance and psychological services. So you're looking at a balance of about $35,726, which is positive. You might recall at the last quarter, this was a negative $17,000. The mid-year retirements do account that third bullet there is the updated one. So there is a need, of course they're all updated and still relevant, But there was a need for additional services for a new student, which was an unexpected move-in, as well as a need for additional contracted services. But some of our mid-year retirements that we have seen have accounted for the favorability in this account. So that is good to see at this point. In our 3,000 series, again, it's about the same as in the first quarter. You might recall in the first quarter we had some transfers that we were looking to present. Those could still be processed, and I'll talk about that in the 9,000 series in a few moments. But right now we're looking at a positive balance of $22,979 for projection for the through the end of the year right now. When we get to operations and maintenance, similarly, again, no transfers have been processed at this point. They would come to you for approval. They haven't been processed yet, so the amount that you're seeing here is about $38,000 higher than what you saw in quarter one. Also good news. Also an option to do some transfers to the 9,000 series, which we're going to talk about.
Can I just jump on that? Part of that too was because we have an open position that hasn't been filled, so we generated some salary savings there. Hopefully it's filled now, but we had a couple of months where we were short.
Yes, and also the shift between the positions in the administrative role. So when we get to fixed charges, there is, in the 5,000 series, we're anticipating spending all of that at this point. Mid-year retirements save us on one end and cost us a little on the other end, so in the end it does balance out, but this is a contractual obligation that we're anticipating spending all of these contractual benefits. When we look at the 9,000 series, you will recall this account was in deficit in the first quarter too, about the same $123,000. The cause being a need for an additional student outplaced after the budget was finalized, as well as an amount reduced for circuit breaker that was too high. The revised budget amount now includes the $25,773 that the town allocated in the November town meeting, so that's in that $64,336 number. There's still an option, you don't see it here, but there is an option for transfers from transportation, not reductions in services, but transfers for transportation services that were budgeted in the 9,000 series for a student that's being transported, but it's not a reduction in services. The student is not in the district anymore. So there's an option for transfer there and from facilities as well, which could offset this amount by roughly $96,000. The reclassification of circuit breaker you see is already built into the formula, the $124,000, which will happen later on in the year. Also possible use of the special ed stabilization account, which I will talk to in a moment, and we're going to talk also about non-resident tuition revolving. So I'm going to go to the next slide. The summary where you're looking right now is, again, better than first quarter, roughly $79,617 left. You're spending 99.47% of your budget based on projections at this point in time, and you still have 6 months of the school year to finish, so I just be clear, and many of your expenses take place at that point in the second half of the school year. So any funding that could be left over at the end of the school year here, we could potentially use to prepay tuitions in accordance with Mass General Law for out-of-district placements. When we talk about revolving funds, so you have an updated summary of what the revolving funds look like. I'm going to call your I will just remind you that money for revolving accounts can only be used to support expenses in each of those programs. The food service, for example, is a self-funded program. The money that comes in from the state, because we're not charging for meals at this point, other than second meals or a la carte items, that's a self-funded program. So that any money in those accounts has to be used towards the food service account, for example. I'll call your attention to the line second from the bottom, which is the non-resident tuition line, which has $108,539 in it. That's money that has come into the district already for students from other neighboring districts in our region that access our curriculum and our special services in our programs here, and they pay tuition for their students to access that, those programs. So this $108,539 can be used to offset costs within the current budget, can and likely will be used to offset costs in the current budget, likely for staff salaries for those staff members who are staffing those substantially separate programs. So that's likely how this money will be used before the end of the school year. And again, I'll reiterate that any funding that might be available can be used to prepay tuitions in accordance with Mass General Law and can be it can offset costs to be able to reduce a budget deficit potentially in FY25 or to make some reductions in FY25. So we're looking at that very closely at this point in time. So overall, your revolving funds are totaling about $866,000. It's about $72,000 more than the first quarter.
And some of those, just to note, a couple of them will be reduced over the second half of the year preschool. Some of the revolving funds offset salary for some of our teachers and assistants. School lunch program, as we've talked about last year, we used for capital projects, replacement of equipment. So we may have some funding expenses in there.
So when we talk about special revenue funds, primarily grants, federal and state grants, you can see that we've updated some of our FY23 grants have been finished. We anticipate that we will spend the majority of our FY24 grants by the end of the year, but they are able to be carried forward for a year if they aren't spent. So our 23 grants are finished. 24 still has some funding left, but again, anticipating it. The one piece I will call to your attention is the Metro West Health Foundation money. You might have recalled that on the quarter one update, that amount was $30,000. That was the award amount. That $30,000 was over 2 years, and I didn't realize that at the quarter one. So I've updated that to $60,000, but we don't have $60,000 right now. We're getting $30,000 this year, $30,000 next year. So that's where the difference is. And so your total is at $297,000 and change. The other special revenue funds include the Special Education Circuit Breaker Fund and your Special Ed Stabilization Fund. Just to be clear, the Special Ed Circuit Breaker, that $146,000 that you see right now, this $124,000 in the beginning balance is what we are talking about in the 9,000 series. So this is not extra, it's not in addition, it's already calculated in to the former slides that you saw. So I just want to clarify that for you. And so in FY25, we're receiving the quarterly payments for circuit breaker, in this current year, we're receiving the quarterly payments for circuit breaker, which that's that $22,352. We'll get 4 of those payments, and they'll be used to offset next year's budget to the tune of about $89,000. And then the Special Ed Stabilization Fund, that is accessible only through a joint vote of the school committee and the select board. So if there's a need for an unanticipated special education expense, that money would be available via those votes. And then a quick summary on your gift accounts. I'm looking at roughly $39,205 as of 12/31. And you can see some of the donations. Again, you accepted a donation tonight, which is great. And the things that we use those donations for. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
In the revolving accounts, what can the property rental revenue be used for?
So we usually use that for building upgrades or facilities, things that are damaged. We've used it to pay for door locks that are broken, replacement of security cameras, but it's for facilities.
Okay.
costs. A couple of years ago, we used some of that money for redoing the entranceway at HOD for security, so those kinds of things.
And we typically rent out for like Norfolk Rec and activities.
Norfolk Rec, I think CYO has rented the gymnasium. We've had some other groups that have come in, just mostly from the FK Gym.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
our highest rental income. But we do, one thing I would say is we have tried to keep some sort of balance in there because years ago, we used to have an extraordinary maintenance line for unexpected costs that might come up, like plumbing problems, and we don't have that. We zeroed that out. So this is your, like, account for unexpected maintenance
Right.
issues.
And these can be rolled over year to
Yep.
year, so
Yes.
there's no
Revolving, okay.
pressure to spend it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. Have a good night.
Good night.
And next up would be an update from Vicki on the ELA curriculum review and our possible program costs for replacing the ELA program.
Didn't want my entire laptop displayed on television. So I just wanted to give you a quick update on where we are with the ELA review. I know I presented initially at the beginning of the school year, so I just want to kind of let you know where we are currently. So just a quick recap, we put together an ELA committee starting in the spring of May 2022, which has 11 members, which includes a teacher representative from each grade level, literacy specialists, and special education teachers. And we have really spent a great amount of time gathering data and over a course of multi-years, and we did a SWOT analysis, which is like the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, to really kind of better understand where our curriculum has been successful and where we have gaps and what our needs are. So after we've completed this, we've identified that our current literacy program really was not meeting the needs of all our students. It definitely had some pockets of success, but with the changing expectations that DESE has released, especially in how we kind of approach early childhood reading, and with the science of reading kind of coming out, we decided that we really needed to explore other programs. So we used, the state in the last couple of years has put together a very comprehensive list of programs that they recommend that districts select from. They have been labeled as I forgot what the exact name is.
Scientific research-based.
Like they were like high effective programs, or that's how they kind of selected it for. And they do like a thorough process where the companies have to kind of submit their programs for a thorough review, and the state uses teachers from across Massachusetts to kind of look at programs, and they have a rubric that they developed that kind of assess different areas. So we use that as our springboard to determine, to kind of start selecting what programs we would like to explore further. So given the results of our SWOT analysis, we kind of knew what we wanted to look for in a program. So we narrowed down. They have a list of maybe 20 programs. We narrowed down to 7 that the committee wanted to take a closer look. After we met with the sales representatives, we got samples. So after kind of thorough examinations, we narrowed the programs down to 3 that we felt that could meet the best needs of our students. So currently we're in, I kind of gave you a list of what the phases have been throughout the process. We're currently in phases 5 and 6, which basically, now that we have narrowed down the programs, which basically we're at the stage where we're going to open up the programs to the rest of our teaching staff, so they have an opportunity to also take a look at the programs, get their hands on, and kind of we're going to have them pilot a couple of lessons from the program, and be able to just look at the resources that are available, and then at the end of the process, we are going to gather feedback from them as well. Under Phase 4, I included a rubric that the committee has developed, which targets what we identified as our areas of priority, which aligns closely with the ones that the state has done. We just kind of elaborate a little bit more to fit, like, because it has to, like, each district has unique needs too, so we wanted to customize it. And we use this rubric to narrow down from our selected 7 to our 3 programs, and then we're going to have the teachers narrow it down even further, so we can have one program that would be the contender, that we're going to kind of propose to the school committee of what we recommend would be the program that we move forward with. And as you can see in the rubric, we're looking for 7 different areas. And one of the things that we really kind of focused on and our priority is that we understand how important literacy skills, as I'm sure we all do, especially at the elementary level, it really has a big impact on students' future success. So we wanted to be like very thorough to make sure that the program kind of really hits as many of these rubric points as it can. We understand that these programs, they're kind of a catch-all because they're national. So our goal has been that we know that there's no program out there that will meet all our needs, but we're looking for a program that will meet the majority of our needs, and that will be easy for us to supplement if there's any gaps that are needed. So after Phase 6, hopefully that when we make the recommendation, we'll also do school visits to kind of see how, if there's other districts that are currently have adopted this program. So our committee members can talk to actual teachers who've used it, because they really are the best ones to be able to let you know exactly, not the sales pitch version of it, but like how it's really working and how students are responding to it. So we'll gather that feedback. We'll have our feedback from our majority of our of the rest of the educators that are going to try it out, the feedback that we're going to have from our committee members who have been so closely, intimately involved with selecting the program and taking those 3 data points. That's how we're going to narrow down to one program. And then I'm hoping to use the summer to kind of make any adjustments necessary after we adopt, plan the professional development for it to make sure that the implementation is smooth and the teachers have like what they need to be able to start making the shift. Any questions?
And typically, we try to plan for the school committee presentation in either April or May. And the ELA committee will come and they'll walk through like what they looked at. They'll bring samples of the materials. And then the committee will have to vote because it'll be a new curriculum adoption. We try to do that April, May so that we have time to purchase the materials. It's great when teachers can leave for the summer with some of the things in hand so they have time to look through them. So that's sort of the timeline we expect we'll be bringing that presentation forward in either April or May.
And I slotted our April, I think it's April professional development, to do a broad overview for teachers of whatever program that we've selected. So, like I said, so they will have at least some sense and be able to start some planning over the summer.
Any questions?
So this will be implemented starting in the fall?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pending funding and everything else.
If all goes according to plan.
Yes.
When you implement a new program like that, is it like the prior one just cuts off, hard stop, end, or is this kind of like a phase in? Does this program address something at an older year versus a younger?
Usually we do a full shift over because, but the programs that we're using, the reason we wanted to do that thorough kind of unpacking of the data at the beginning stages is that there were some areas that were very strong, and then we decided that this was a priority, you know what I mean? So one of the areas that our current program, Lucy, does well is kind of to instill that love for reading and writing, you know what I mean? Because students get time to just read books, you know? So that was a huge priority for our committee, which the program that we have narrowed down kind of carry over those philosophies. So it won't be like, it will be a completely everything's new. Like that's why it was helpful for us to do that. And that's how we eliminated some other programs that were very basal heavy that were like, I don't know if you guys remember back, like when they had like the hardcore books and the short stories. So like those were not really aligning with how we felt literacy was developed in children, so the shift won't be in everything so stark. And this year, our teachers we're using 3 professional development days to do, we partner with Health for Literacy, which is an organization that has been really used across the state. They do a lot of training on the science of reading for teachers. So teachers have had 3 half-day PDs. There's 2 more left dedicated to the science of reading. So we kind of do the PD, kind of the philosophy building this year. So when the program comes, it's more like the technical, so it won't be such a huge shift too.
And I think one other thing in keeping with that is the curriculum for us is the state standards. So those don't change. The program is a resource to teach them. So in terms of scope and sequence, the standards won't be changing. We'll just be using different materials. But with any program adoption, there might be gaps. And so that's something like Vicki was talking about over the summer. We look knowing, all right, when we look at what 3rd grade's starting with, this might need to be shored up to support the first year implementation. But it's not dramatic because the standards don't change. So the assumptions are the content will still remain continuous.
So are the companies you guys are looking, are they national companies then, or are they state companies geared to
No, they're
Massachusetts?
national. Most textbooks are written for like the bigger states, California, Texas, and they align to different state standards. So they're national textbooks. But what DESE has done is curate them so that they are looking at all, as Vicki talked about, they're looking at all the programs out there and curating what best aligns with math standards and the science of teaching reading, and they're narrowing what's out there to, these are programs that are appropriate to look at. But they are all written for a national audience.
Okay. Thanks, Vicki.
Sure. All right. That's all we have tonight.
All right, moving to committee reports. Jen is not here for King Philip. I don't know if she's given you any update.
She has not. I don't know if she was able to be at the last meeting because of her surgery.
Budget subcommittee update, we're going to present what we've been finding at the next meeting. But we did talk about moving the next school committee meeting from March 6th to March 12th. That's my only update from our prior meeting.
And that will actually be the public hearing on the budget. So it's the February meeting will stay, but the March meeting, we were originally looking at March 6th, but Miriam's not able to make it. And so for the public hearing on the budget, we want the budget guru there. So, so we're looking for that shift.
That's all from budget. And then new items, we have minutes to approve. You guys have had a chance to read them. If you have, someone could make a motion to approve them.
So moved.
A second.
Any further discussion?
No.
Right. Approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. And then the next school committee meeting, February 13th. Right, that's all I have.
And then you get to
Oh, I get to
Motion
close
to
it too.
adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Oh,
Can I have a motion?
I will move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
get the back to go.
Adjourn.